Welcome to the Economist at Work virtual work session, Reimagining Leadership, Collaboration, and Productivity. We are going to delve into the 5G future of work in our session today. I'm Vijay Vaidiswaran. I'm the US business editor for The Economist, and it's my great pleasure to take on this huge topic, one that will transform how all of us work and live in coming years, with a very distinguished panel of experts. We have with us Cecilie Heuch from Telenor, Mats Granryd from GSMA, Christopher Foos from DHL, and Jonathan Davidson from Cisco. Again, welcome to you all. Thank you for sharing your insights with us today. This is a topic that is quite exciting to people, but at the same time, it's quite invisible in a way, right? None of us wakes up, other than those of us perhaps who are in the technology world or building 5G networks. It's not really something that you can touch and feel or drop on your foot per se, unless you have a base station of some kind that you're working on as an engineer. And yet, the potential of connectivity, of enabling a new way of working, the future of the Internet of Things and smart cities and the extraordinary transformation that is possible is here dangled in front of us in a sense because of the pandemic. We've been immersed quite accelerated fashion into this world of digitization and help us along that journey a little bit. What we want to do today is talk about what this is going to mean for all of us in practical terms, what we can take away in terms of how our work may change. But also, we want to make sure to keep a sense of realism about things, that this is not simply a techno-utopian world we're talking about. There will be practical challenges. There will be collaborations that are needed. There's no magic bullet or solutions to the problems of culture, for example, or social isolation, or some collaboration, for example, won't magically happen simply because we have a new networking technology. So that's why I'm so pleased to have a session of such both experts but practitioners who will help us guide and navigate our way to this new future. Let me start first. Cecilia, can you give us your perspective? I know you think quite a lot about this issue. When you look at a world that is better, faster, and smarter, as you've put it, how do you see 5G advancing that picture?
Well, I think that 5G will help us work better, faster, and smarter. But I would say that although we will have lower latencies and higher speed, it's not only about the technology and the networks. It's also about the way we work. But we think that this will first be a possibility for democratizing hiring opportunities. So this will, we've seen a lot of that during last year, and with an access which is going to be very different in the future to high quality connectivity and collaboration tools, we think that it will be possible to get people to work from wherever. And that is going to be a major change. We've only seen the start of that. And secondly, I think that, as you alluded to, greater digital inclusion of isolated groups at the workplace can make a big difference, and also isolated groups in our societies. You could think about people with disabilities. I think this can give other people with other needs a great possibility of inclusion in the workplace. And then the third way, I think that is where we're going to see major changes is when it comes to enabling remote monitoring and operation of technology. And we saw that in Telenor during the pandemic, where, for instance, just an example, in Telenor in Pakistan, we managed in 2 to 3 days, we managed to move network operations remotely, serving 45 million customers. So, and I think all the operators, all the telecoms around the world had similar experiences. So we have seen that we're able to do things that we had never done before. But it's not only the technology; it's also the ways of working and the devices, the other things that we need to have in this whole value chain to make it work. But it will be smarter, better, and faster, smarter, better, and I would say safer. We have potentially, we can make changes with 5G that can make also the working life safer for many industries and many groups of people.
So that's an ambitious agenda you put on the table, a good start to our session. I know we're going to delve into each of those as we go forward. But before I let you go for the moment, let me just push on one of those topics that you mentioned, that is the democratization of hiring. Can you tell me how you see this unfolding? How does this, simply having 5G instead of 4G, does it really make companies more open to hiring from a more diverse workforce, for example? Tell us a little bit more about what you mean about that.
I think we see that we need different skills in the future and more of certain skills. I think we're all, I mean, we read in the papers, all of us, that our jobs today and our roles will become redundant and we need to upskill and reskill. I think that's the reality in all industries. And so there will be a scarcity of certain skills in certain areas. And this 5G revolution can enable us to get skills from other places than where we usually do. So, for instance, to get the cybersecurity expert, to take a Telenor example, in Myanmar is not so easy. With the 5G technology, we could think of having competency hubs elsewhere that can serve countries in a different way than we are used to, that are remotely in distance. So that is one.
So that's a powerful idea. What we do know, studying, for example, multinational companies, broadly speaking, even companies that have operations in 100 countries, if you look at their employee base and their leadership, they tend to come from one or two cultures. Managers tend to hire people that think like them, sometimes look like them. And so technology may enable greater diversity. But to your point, I think culture has to change as well, and practices. It can be an enabler, but it's not going to guarantee that outcome. But let's move on. Let's see what others think about this topic as well. Mats, let's turn to you. I know that you have a perspective that virtual working does not replace the benefits of people coming together. Can you tell us a little bit about the two sides of the coin here with the new technologies and what's enabled by much faster and better connectivity?
Yeah, well, thank you, Vijay, and thank you for having me on this panel. 5G will no doubt give us a huge amount of new opportunities. I think that's beyond doubt. Same as 4G gave us the platform economy, if you like. 5G has the ability to do the same and beyond. And it's pretty difficult to today understand exactly what 5G will give in the future, but we can almost guarantee it's going to be, as Cecilia said, smarter, better, and safer in the future. I would like to pick up on the inclusion bit. If we look at the planet as such, we have 7.8 billion people on the planet today. Half of them are connected to internet, and the vast majority through a mobile device. So that's some 3.9 billion. And then we have 3.9 billion people that are not connected to internet. And it's really two groups there. One is a gap of coverage where we don't have any mobile broadband coverage, and that is today 3G or 4G. And in the future, it's going to be 5G, but today 3G and 4G. And then there is a usage gap where people are covered, but they choose not to connect to internet. Now, the coverage gap is 7%. So that's roughly 600 million people, while the usage gap is a whopping 3.2 billion people. So clearly, there is an opportunity, exactly what Cecilia said here, to make sure that we get all people on internet. Because if we can do that, we will have a huge amount of more skills to foster, a lot more intelligence that will come our way, and the economy will certainly bloom going forward. So I think we are at a fork in the road right now where we are seeing the power of digitization, and I think it's been augmented further with the COVID crisis, and we see data being consumed twice or three times as much going forward. So if we're not careful, we stand the risk of excluding half of the world's population from the digital revolution. And I think that is something we need as leaders to take really serious. And I know Telenor and a whole bunch of other esteemed mobile operators are working a lot with figuring out good ways of making sure that everyone has the ability to be part of internet.
So, Mats, you put your finger on a powerful theme of the hour, and that is inequality, right? Where there's been a lot of discussion about the so-called Piketty problem, the income inequality gap, asset inequality. But here we're talking about the digital divide when it comes to access to connectivity and all of the things that it enables: access to markets, access to information, empowerment, social connectivity. And that was already true in the past, historically. But going forward, you see a role for 5G in helping bridge that or to overcome that problem. What do operators need? What do the commercial participants need in terms of support from government or intergovernmental organizations or societal actors? What's the missing piece of the puzzle so that 5G is not a repeat of 4, 3, and 2, or even just simple basic connectivity? A quick word from you, Mats, and let's go to Cecilia next.
No, I think that is a good question. I mean, operators globally are planning to invest $1.1 trillion in mobile capex from now to 2025 in 5 short years. 80% of that will go to 5G. So if we're not careful, as I said, the fork in the road is now. With 5G, society will continue to change and maybe change even further. I'm sure we're going to talk about the ability that 5G has to connect through IoT, which is vastly different from that of 4G or 3G or 2G. And that will change society. And if we are not careful, we will certainly have this bifurcation between populations. So I think, back to your question, Vijay, I think government needs to realize that harmonized spectrum globally, really critical. Affordable spectrum with terms that we can understand, really important. But also having an investment-friendly climate. So we actually dare to invest that $1.1 trillion in something that we can get the return from. I think those are the things that we're discussing with regulators and ministries across the planet.
Cecilia, a quick word, and then we'll come to you, Christopher, next.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that when it comes to increasing digital inclusion, we need to work together on that. And we have programs in all the countries where Telenor is present, and I'm sure that's the case for most operators. There are initiatives to upskill and reskill population. And we do that with UNICEF, with Plan International, so with NGOs and support authorities. So, for instance, in Myanmar, they have now taken it in as in the national curriculum, some digital skills, and we are supporting them in doing so. So I think it's not one partner. We need to work in ecosystems to manage to bridge and to provide that digital inclusion. And it's the responsibility of all of us.
Thank you for that. Christopher, I want to come to you. At DHL, of course, you're one of the world's big logistics and supply chain operators. You have fingers in a lot of pies around the world. Can you give us a sense of where the arrival and expansion of 5G, how it's going to connect with the Internet of Things, with transforming supply chains? Where do you see the future evolving on that front?
Yeah, thanks for this great question to me. Actually, I was thinking about it already when I heard the first 2 speakers here on that panel. It was mainly about people in here, but we as DHL, we foresee also a great necessity for 5G in the world of connecting things. Yeah, and it was mentioned already, the Internet of Things, that thing is pretty important for us. And if you think, for example, not only about the people with 500,000 employees across the globe that we need to connect, this actually happened already during the pandemic now, and it gave a huge push to digitalize how we work together. But it will also, and 5G from our perspective, will also change the way of jobs and how we work with things. So there are more and more robots that we deploy. And for example, today we actually see with existing infrastructure, with existing telecommunication technologies, we come to our boundaries already. And we need urgently things like 5G and the capabilities that 5G offers to come to the next level. Yeah, if you, for example, see that thousands of robots just create confusion in networks, but with 5G you could overcome this. There are huge opportunities. And on the other side, having the option to work remotely also offers our operations, for example, to do things remotely, and therefore other jobs will be created now. One thing that I think is necessary from a regulatory perspective, but more from the user perspective spoken right now, is we need to have global connectivity, meaning seamless connectivity. Roaming is a topic that urgently needs to be solved also on the 5G front. Otherwise, it's difficult for a global player, at least, to deploy it more or less globally on a seamless level.
You raise a tricky point here, the idea of global connectivity. We've heard the importance of standards already mentioned. The practical reality is that we have had something of a splinter net emergence because of some of the U.S. political backlash against Huawei and Chinese technology. There is the risk that we may see a bifurcation going forward. What is your expectation as a company that needs your systems to be global and seamless? That going forward with the new outlook in Washington, perhaps coming with the new administration, do you foresee that we will have a global set of standards and technologies for the rollout of future 5G and IoT? Or are you still concerned that we may see two spheres of influence when it comes to this important technology, enabling technology of the future?
I think we have to deal with what is there and what will come. In the end, there might be also some parts of the internet that are separate from others, as it is today already. Nevertheless, I think there will be standards that for sure everybody would like to have to ensure that things and their technology could be used. One of the major things we are looking into today is security, data security. How we can also, with all these trends going to cloud, how we can ensure that still our data is our data and that we have access to it. And we're working here together with our suppliers and technology providers. But nevertheless, to answer your question, that's my personal opinion now. There will be standards, but there will be also substandards. And if we want to deploy and use technology in certain areas of the world, we might to comply with the local regulation.
Okay, well, you put down a marker on that. Let's see what happens on that front. The point I want to come to Jonathan on. Jonathan, you've argued that 5G isn't just about being able to deliver things fast, although I'm sure DHL takes pride in delivering things quickly. Your argument on 5G is to look beyond perhaps an idealized version of things. Don't let the ideal be the enemy of the good, in a way. Can you tell me a little bit about the good things that you do see 5G delivering and how to get there?
Absolutely. And again, thanks for having me on the panel. So, one of the big things that we hear from people is 5G going to finally enable a better experience for the end customers? Will my video stop buffering and being glitchy? The short answer to these things is yes, at least on a macro scale. For video calls as we know them today, the two major things that contribute to a poor experience is really about delay and jitter. And these problems diminish if not only just fundamentally go away when you've got enough bandwidth with a low enough latency. And there's actually many ways to solve this particular problem. So the internet infrastructure as we know it that's being built for 5G, it really expands the capacity and the overall performance of the network tremendously. And another way to solve some of these video problems is really about distributing that video content closer to where humans and things are. And you do this by what many of us talk about, edge computing, and how that can fundamentally lower the burden on the infrastructure. And the good news is that you don't have to wait for 5G to reap all of those benefits. And it's beneficial not only for video, but for services like IoT that Matt was mentioning. Security can also be fundamentally assisted as well. And then what we hear a lot about is what's happening in the private 5G world. We've helped over 100 different enterprise customers build private 4G networks over the past several years, and we expect more customers to take that into the 5G era and beyond. And then when you start to think about other potential applications, whether it's enhanced video surveillance or more machine-to-machine connectivity or virtual reality, there's potential for more problems to rise up again. But by then, we'll probably be talking about 6G, and we can have another panel at that point.
Well, before we get into 6G, I want to come to Mats in a moment for a follow-up on this. But it seems clear that the lead use case is not what's typically in the media these days. That is the fancy 5G phones that let me download a movie in 2 seconds. But it's really the corporate use case, the enterprise use case. That's where we're going to see the leading applications. That's where perhaps the return on investment is strongest. And we're going to see a lot of this technology being proved out in areas, for companies like General Motors are already using aspects of this for remote access, real-time weather traffic data. Of course, Tesla has been working on its own set of technologies in this area. Insurance companies and financial sector companies have been pushing on this. What do you think would be the next round of industries that are likely to adopt this? Is it the factory of the future, the asset-heavy industries that are next? Jonathan, before we turn to Mats?
Well, I think even if you just look at what's happening in private 5G, it's still pretty early on. We've seen the U.S. government move quickly. We've seen car companies in Germany move very quickly. We've seen even folks in APJ move quickly towards it. It could be warehouse-based applications for IoT. It could be for very large, military bases. But it's difficult to predict exactly the use case. But I would agree with Mats and Cecilia that really it's about transforming and enabling the digital divide. And we've been working for a few years now in the UK with 5G rural capabilities to help extend the connectivity for those who are unconnected. We've been working closely with nonprofits here in the US to help bridge the digital divide on Native American lands as well here in the United States. So I'm a big believer there's not only a lot of commercial use cases, but there's also a huge potential for really closing that digital divide and really enabling the digital kind of tide to raise everyone's boats simultaneously.
Thank you. Mats, you wanted to follow up on this point.
Yeah, thank you, Vijay. I think Jonathan sort of covered what I was going to say, but you started with saying that we're talking about something that we all have a relationship to, 5G, but very few people have seen it. And I was just thinking that we need to be a little bit mindful of 5G is rolling out as we speak. Today, 144 networks globally have launched, and we believe there's going to be another 90 or so launching this year. And we are forecasting that by 2025, roughly 20% of this, 5% of the subscribers will be on 5G. So, it is quite slow moving. This 5G. The capabilities are certainly there. And I think once we are into a standalone 5G, which is then separated from 4G and old legacy technology, we will have the ability to deliver network slicing or having a dedicated network to a factory or an industry. And for the first time in history, we will be able to actually to guarantee capacity. Because today it's still only best effort, but tomorrow we will be able to guarantee. So it's going to be really like fiber in the air in the future once we get into a standalone mode in a couple of years' time. But right. I don't want us to overhype the ability that 5G is already sort of well deployed. It is not. It is going to be, but it's just starting to roll out.
Well, that's certainly a provocative idea, fiber in the air, isn't it? But some ways off, not quite yet. Cecilia, a quick thought from you.
I just wanted to build on what Mats just said and just confirm that we are in the exploratory phase with lots of use cases, more or less advanced ones. And just to give a few examples, there is at the European level a group of 23 partners working together in what is called VINI. It's the Verticals Innovation Infrastructure, where we provide a test bed end-to-end facility and explore together, all 23 partners, solutions for vertical industries. And some of the cases are autonomous vessels, mission critical communication with the Norwegian Defence, medical monitoring, for instance, remote ultrasound examinations, and remote monitoring in different industries. But it's all in the exploratory phase, huge potential. So that's just to confirm what Mats is saying. Initial stages,
Great.
working together in ecosystems.
Sure. And the theme that repeats what you had said in your opening comments comes out, that is some of the remote monitoring, remote operations. I've seen in the reporting I've done for The Economist during this crisis, a huge shift towards remote monitoring, remote, whether it be mines in Chile or ships at sea, factories, petrochemical facilities, or finding different aspects of remote installation of equipment, for example, where a vendor could not come to set up equipment. There was already a reliance, and people finding that, in fact, actually, this is quite good. Why not do predictive maintenance this way? Things that have always been in the works. These are not new ideas, but a rapid acceleration and now an enablement of some of these approaches will change how we work. Christopher, you wanted to come in on this point, and then we'll begin to wrap things up quickly.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a few use cases from our perspective that we see. For sure, autonomous driving is high on the agenda for everybody, right? Especially also in the logistics industry. And I see that now the industries that already digitalized, like finance and e-commerce, were potentially not that asset heavy, but now today more the asset heavy industries goes into the digitalization, and therefore 5G plays a really crucial role. And it's more or less now one tool in the toolbox that we need to deploy. And as the others already said, it's a little bit like, okay, what can we do now with the technology? The technology is there, and now we search for use cases. But sometimes the use cases are so easy because sometimes connectivity is an issue. Yeah, you cannot imagine, but if we are in, for example, peak season in our parcel networks, we need to have pop-up facilities. We need to have really an immediate effect, let's say an up and running facility with so and so many sorters, sorting bells, robots, and so on. They all need to be connected. Therefore, for example, 5G networks, private 5G networks are just perfect. Another example for this was, for example, at the outbreak of the corona pandemic in China. The people there set up these pop-up hospitals and equipped them all with 5G immediately to be able to up and running in just a relatively short-term notice. So it's not always about fancy stuff moving totally autonomous. Sometimes it's just connecting as fast as possible as many people and things. So for us, it's also important not only to talk about the broadband spectrum, but also about the narrowband spectrum of 5G, because here we even see, for example, for the logistics industry, even more potential, because we could solve a lot of things even with 4G today. But let's wait and see what we come up with. And sometimes the next step is not the big one, but just a small one.
Right. So we're getting a real fine-grained picture, a detailed portrait, which is what I wanted for us, rather than simply a lot of 30,000-foot prognostications or chin stroking. And I think that's the value of having experts like you on this, giving us a sense of what's realistic, what's incremental, what's the ideal versus what's actually likely to happen. So I'm grateful to all of you. In the little time we have remaining, I want each of you to give me just one sentence on what is going to be, you think, the most powerful way that the way we work will be changed by 5G over the next 5 years. Just one specific thing. I'll start with you, Cecilia.
I think that the biggest potential is in different partners in an industry working together with not only 5G, but also the combination of 5G and different ways of working, and also different...
So new ways of collaboration.
Yeah, and change and change of
right.
processes,
Okay.
change of applications, devices. The total package.
Mats, what do you say, Mats?
I think I would say inclusion. That technology
Inclusion.
will
You're back to your
provide
first point.
I think the world, people, as well as things will come closer to each other with 5G.
Bridging the divide that separates us all. And Jonathan, your answer.
I would say really mass scale personalization and more immediacy than we've ever had before. So not just about connecting things quickly, but about bringing people together.
Well, my great speakers have summed it up better than I could. The world of work will be transformed in unexpected ways, but also in some wonderful ways, is their prediction. Don't hold out for the ideal. The future will come in fits and starts, but it does look like we're going in the direction of inclusion, of bridging the digital divide, finding new ways of working and collaborating together. And if that is indeed what 5G will bring, I think we should all welcome it. So let me thank my panelists for giving us a sneak peek into the future. Thank you all very much.